Welcome to Connected, the podcast for entrepreneurs and executives who know a thing or two about networking. My old friend, Lawrence Henderson, to the Connected podcast. This podcast is really all about talking with entrepreneurs and executives that know a thing or two about networking. And one thing that I know about Lawrence is he is a consummate networker, always out. Probably one of the few people I know who's more connected than I am. And so really want to, just kind of talk to you for a few minutes and kind of find out, some of your strategies for building and leveraging relationships to grow your business and your career. So again, welcome, Lawrence, and to the Connected podcast.
Oh my God, Ray! Thank you so much for having me on today. And I will not allow you to say I'm more connected than you. Anybody who writes a book about this kind of stuff, you got the juice, man.
I do appreciate that. I do appreciate that. So tell me a little bit about Boss, and how you guys started and what type of services that you offer.
Yeah. So again, Lawrence Henderson, the president, and I call myself a chief learning officer, trying to get cute with it, business operational support services, aka Boss. And how I got started, Ray, was about 2015. I was about 9 months out of the Army, transitioned out in January 2015. And it was really me connecting to purpose. Those first 9 months, of course, like most veterans or anybody transitioning in life, I probably put in a couple hundred applications and wasn't getting any calls, right? I had 400 versions of my resume. I was doing anything. I was reading the books. I was watching the podcast. I was doing all those things, but it just felt like I was reaching, and I found myself spiraling. And one day, once I stopped struggling, I really leaned into this thing that you call, networking and connection. But the folks I reached out to, in the Army, most people, anybody in the military, when you go to a new duty station, you were assigned a network, and they generally, were a part of your organization. Well, in this side of life, I, for the first time, wasn't used to working this hard for people to say yes to me as a connection. And it was frustrating me. But one thing I had to do as I started Boss was I'm like, why are people going to say yes to you? And I always love that interview question of why will someone say yes to you? Why you, as an employee? And I was like, I had to start answering that question for myself as it pertains to why would someone want to be connected to me? And it had everything to do with the way that I see the world and what I feel uses filters, and that value system for me. In most Army guys, if you don't know, BOSS is an acronym. And I was like, all right, my values, and turn those into an acronym. And RISE, respect, integrity, service, and excellence, are my values. And that is kind of what I framed Boss around. It was like, how is Boss going to show up in RISE? And from that, once I got clear about my message, I got clear about my why, I got clear about what I would be doing in a space with someone else and how I wanted them to experience me. That is what really was the catalyst for me seeing and being connected to the work that I love doing, which is coaching, which is development training from an organizational leadership perspective, where I deal with the dispositions of people, I deal with the values, the foundations of a person, so that those things we can build sustainability around. And that's the work that gasses me up every day, Ray. Yeah, man.
That's great. That is so cool. What an inspiring story as well about how you change careers midlife, and and that's not easy. Many people don't have they don't have the courage to do it, and B, they don't have the skills to do it. And so for you to do what you have to do to acquire the skills to start your own business and be successful has hats off to you. Definitely not easy. But what would you say is because one of the things I teach in networking is being intentional about the people that you should have in your network, right? People that you call, who will you allow into your network? And I'm wondering, what type of criteria do you have before you allow somebody to be part of your network?
Yeah. So Ray, I'm gonna tell you, I telling myself early on when I first transitioned out, I was one of because of that, the way we were assigned an organization, we were assigned people. I early on was bad at allowing everybody into my space. And really when I allowed them into my space, I was actually as a detriment to myself emotionally was I was assigning them the level of access that anybody closest to me would get, because you got to understand the background I come from the military. Like I had to depend on somebody to the left and the right of me to potentially keep me alive in a combat scenario. And so one thing I never forget, man, my wife said it. She said, you friend too hard.
And
I was
wow, wow.
and of course, I got a little offended. I got a little. I was like, I was like, what do you mean? She was like, you don't give people a chance to know you. You don't give yourself a chance to know if that's the type of person that you actually want to put yourself in front of a bullet for. I was assigning that same level of care and emotion. And one of the things I had to sit with, Ray, was putting people not in boxes as a permanent thing, but what's the reason? Is this the season? And what level and status of relationship this is? This a lifetime relationship? Is this somebody, you know what, just in this season of life, I'm working with them and I'm literally going to vibe that way. And then is there just a specific reason? This person is a connection point. Ray, when I first met you at Cox, it was like, hey, I like that guy. We vibe. And
Right.
I don't know when we're going to connect again, but I want to introduce myself and I want to know him. And then look, 2 years later, 3 years later, 4 years later, this is when we finally podcast together. But what I was doing is I was assigning Ray as a podcast guest the moment I met you.
Yes.
And so when there was no reciprocal relationship, it was offending me. And the other person was just like moving on with their life. And I was over there having a whole meltdown as about, and so reason, seasons, lifetimes, as pertains to how people come into my space. But also, Ray, I really like to say this season of life for all of us, if the last several years, particularly the pandemic season of life, if it hadn't taught us anything, it's making sure that we do community and we do community well. And it's crazy during this time is when me and you connected again. We circled back up and it just made sense because now I'm intentional about getting with other coaches. I'm super intentional about getting with other development leaders. I'm super intentional about people who are going down an educational journey to get their PhD like I am. Super intentional about higher education as an adjunct at Morehouse. And so those are the people, they're aligned with what I do. And so it makes sense when a new coach or somebody comes into my space.
Yes, and I tell you, that is really the secret to it, is being intentional. People, what you described earlier in your career was what so many people do, is they think networking is about numbers. It's about how many business cards can I give out and how many business cards can I collect. That's, the secret to success in many people's minds. It's kind of what we're taught, right?
Yep.
You go to an event, you hand out cards, you get some cards, you call them the next day. But the reality is that that's not how it works. It's about being intentional, deciding who do you need, finding those people, and then building a good relationship with them. And you made a good point a minute ago about how we met, right? And it's about just planting a seed. One of the things I always talk about is that networking is like gardening, but people treat it like hunting, right?
Yep.
The problem with hunting is that you get one shot and either you get it or you don't, right?
Yep.
But with gardening, once you plant that seed, it may take a while. You're not going to get anything that day, but over the course of the months and the years, it continues to bear fruit, literally and
Sure.
figuratively. So that's good. So cool. I'm gonna put you on the spot just a little bit.
Mhm.
I'm just wondering, if you can recall a relationship that you've made along your career that has really been the most impactful, that person that you have a relationship with that continues to bear fruit, and how did that grow, and maybe just describe that a little.
Yeah. So I would say early on, one of the first relationships that, and she was actually a connector to someone, again, Reason Seasons, Melissa Collier. When I was working at Cox early on, was contractor Cox, and then got on as permanently. And the job I was doing there really wasn't connected to, and it was just something that I was doing, life after military. But when Melissa came along, she came into a learning organization. So I got introduced to learning and development as a modality, as a training in the career field, and she introduced me to Nicole Ash. And Nicole Ash, who at the time was the SVP of Human Resources and Development at Cox Automotive, then she introduced me to Rock Anderson. And what ended up happening there was I began to be intentional about meeting with them, and they began to sew into me. Well, crazy enough, during that time, and I would say that season of life for me was so crucial because they opened me up to Cox Toastmasters. He said that to me. And there I met Dave Gresso, that we both know Dave. And crazy thing about it is, and I'm stringing these relationships along because, again, painting a picture of Reason Seasons. And Dave invited me, and I never forget, Dave invited me to speak at Cox Automotive, had a Toastmasters club. And they said they were doing a special, they were doing an open house over at Cox Automotive. And I never forget this. They were like, their executive sponsor was going to be there. I was like, all right, cool. Whatever. I didn't know who it was. And so I went, and crazy enough, Ray, I was the only speaker. This was Cox Automotive's Toastmasters open house, and I was the only speaker from the other Cox club. And crazy enough, the executive sponsor was Richard Cox.
What?
Came after it was over. He said, hey, we need to hang out. And you talk about a singular relationship that kind of the catapult me forward. And what you see today was we began to meet monthly for 30 minutes for breakfast and all the rest of that. During my time at Cox, he exposed me and opened me to other relationships. And the crazy thing is, I was telling people that I was telling Nicole, I was telling Rock, I was telling Melissa, like I know Richard, like he's my mentor now. And they were like, what? That's who I was going to introduce you to next. And so, but it speaks to alignment, and it speaks to intentionality about doing your work and your stuff. And I would say Richard, during that season of life for me, was so crucial, because how to conduct myself and how to get feedback on how people are experiencing me and showing up for opportunities, how to show up. Like he was so crucial in giving me feedback that I needed so that I could be what I am today and be open to relationship and different things that make sense. And so he's gone on to do amazing things, continues to do amazing things. From time to time, we may shoot each other a text, but that season of life for me, Ray, was crucial. And him as a mentor it's priceless. It was invaluable.
Yes, man. And I tell you, what you just laid it out, there's so much to unpack in that story, about, how even a weak connection with someone who you just never know who somebody knows or who they can introduce you to. Yep. And so while I do say, keep the number of the people who are actually in your network small, right? Your strong connections. But then you have a lot of weak connections, because more opportunities come through your weak connections than they come through your strong connections. Because the people who are in your strong connections, quite often you all know the same people. The people who you keep, not arm's length sounds like a bad word, but if you just kind of, you have people who you just touch base with every 6 months or so, your weaker connections, a lot of times they know somebody who would be just the person you need to meet. But also what you said, I think that really, resonated with me, was your willingness to take action, to step out on faith. I mean, man, how many people would have said no to that opportunity to go speak, at some place they've never done it before, and just, go, I'm busy, I got too much to do. But you said, you know what, I'm going to take this step, and it led to so much. And so, I hope the folks who are listening to this podcast really kind of get that. Don't take away anything else.
Yeah.
Understand that you never know who other people may know. So be nice, be kind to everyone, right? And also, take that leap of faith. Don't cower. Don't be afraid. Go out there because you never know what will happen.
Yeah. Well, Ray, and something there that I want to add in as you talk about those close, connections and those, the weaker ones. I what comes to mind is Kyle Idleman wrote a book, Not a Fan.
Mm-hmm.
And it's you have the group that are fans and then you have the followers, right? And the framework of the book is about, the story of Christ, and are you a follower or you're a fan of the person? I believe it's the same thing with us in networking and relationship. Is what connected me and continues to connect me as an entrepreneur today is I don't know who's a fan. They don't engage with me directly. They don't do anything. But next thing I know, somebody's emailing me and say, hey, this person passed your name along to me, and they're a fan. And again, the follower is the close relationship. It's the connection of saying, hey, I know your name. We actually talk from time to time. It's me and Ray. Like we're followers. We're grouped together. But there are those fans out there. And I love what you said there, particularly around you never know who's watching as a fan, and who they may be in conversation with somebody and they may say, hey, Lawrence, you know what? You just brought up something. I know Ray Abram. Ray Abram is somebody you need to know, you need to be connected with, because there's some alignment and there's some synergy, because I just saw a podcast of his and you're talking about the same stuff Ray was talking about. And again, those fans are the kind of the energy and the webs, the interwebs that all connect us. Like and again, I love the way LinkedIn does it. They'll count people as second, third plus connections. Well, you never know if it's the fourth connection of somebody else who, and I'll never forget, somebody I do business with, my page got shared with their cousin who, like, I was a third connection of theirs. And they shared my page with someone who brought me up and brought up a topic I was talking about. And they got connected to me, and now I do business with them.
Wow.
Never know, man.
You just never know. And that's why it's so important just to, stay active, go out. I think about actually when you and I reconnected at the I think it's the Rise Awards.
Yep.
And I remember seeing you, and I guess I hadn't probably seen you in maybe 2 years.
Yeah.
Before that. And, but, I think about it, I almost didn't go, right? Because tickets were at $75. And it just was a bit pricey, for a local award.
Exactly.
And I said, you know what? I'm going to go out on faith, and I'm going to, spend this money and participate. Yep. And I'm so glad I did, again, because, you and I kind of reconnect, because I don't know if we actually had each other's contact information.
I don't think we did.
Yeah, it's like, well, obviously I knew you, and I think we may have been connected on LinkedIn.
Yep.
We just never, as work colleagues, we just never exchanged personal information. So they would get your contact, and so and here we are today, because I took the leap to be there and invest in relationships, and so I think that's such an important lesson. So good stuff, man. Well, like I said, I try to keep this to about 20, 25 minutes, but I want to give you an opportunity to tell people about what you have going on specifically, how they can reach you, anything you want to tell the listeners.
All right. Well, I tell you what, so I mentioned doing a podcast. And so on Mondays, early in the week, I do a podcast called Hot Takes, where we seek to be humble, open, and transparent. And so bring on other practitioners of coaching, organizational development, leadership as partners. And we just have an open conversation about why that's a thing for the person I'm interviewing, and then why that's a thing for me. And really, if we talk about ideal clients and people that I love to work with, I love to work with people who are past just checking boxes on development, and they really want to build out sustainability as it pertains to helping people feel like human beings, not just humans doing as an organizational strategy. And the work that I do in my PhD program, I see that as the next sexy thing is sustainability from the human resource aspect. And I'm here for it. I'm here to help people through coaching. I do professional leadership development coaching, which again, not consulting. I'm not giving you my intellectual property. You already have it within you. I'm just there to partner for your success. And the way people find me, you go to the website, www.bossconsultingllc.net, or you can follow me across Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, or Facebook at Boss Lab, BOSSLLAB. If you want to email me directly, Lawrence at bossconsultingllc.net. I would love to connect with you. I'm always with like Ray. Make sure that I keep space like that on my calendar for new connections and for synergy conversations. And again, just want to thank you, Ray, for this opportunity, speak to your audience, and just again, bro, just connect again.
Absolutely, absolutely. So everybody who's listening, please reach out to my man Lawrence. He's a good brother and he's doing some great work and really has a good heart, for sharing and helping people. So highly recommend, working with him. And I've been, pleased to have you as a friend and look forward to us continuing to collaborate and working together. So
yes, sir.
This has been really, really cool. Right, thanks again, Lawrence.